the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's McKelly.
And I'm Jenny.
Thank you for joining us for episode 249 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 23 of A Feast for Crows. That is Alayne 1.
As always, we'll chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully provide you with some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarize what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondences. Be sure to check out our show notes. They provide some additional information about the characters and other things of note about this chapter. Jenny, hello, it's good to see you.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yeah, I was saying to Simon last week, it's been since last fall, I think, right? Since you and I did a show together?
Yes, Simon and I just did one in April, but yeah, you and I haven't done one for quite a while.
Yes, so I'm glad that we're remedying that.
Yes, this is the smoothest start I think I've had of all the times I've done it. This is the least technical difficulty, so
yeah,
that's promising.
We established a Zoom connection previously, so all I had to do was click on you and invite you, so it was super smooth on my end anyway.
Good.
So so today is the last day of the year of July.
Yes, it is. Did you have a Molly milestone for us?
We don't. So we don't have a Molly milestone. That was the exciting thing about July, is that June we had all the wrap-up things, graduation and graduation parties and all last things, and August we have school, start of school, and us becoming empty nesters and all that. But July was like the safe month where we didn't have any major life altering events. So but today's the last day of that month, so we're out of the safety zone as of tomorrow. So anyway, that's enough about me. Jenny, how are you doing? How has your summer been? You gone anywhere interesting or fun?
I'm doing great. We had a very nice vacation to Tennessee. My husband's family lives there, and we went and saw some beautiful scenery while we were there, so it was really nice.
That's right. You sent me a picture looking over 7 states.
I did. I'm kind of skeptical about their claim that you can see them all just because of the curvature of the earth, but hey, whatever works for them.
Yeah, they're out there. If you just might be over the horizon, but that state is out there.
Yes, I could maybe see 3 or 4, probably, but 7, I don't know. I'm doubtful.
Well, I guess they're figuring not many people are going to haul them up on it. Go out there and try and prove them wrong. But
maybe you have to be really tall.
Yeah, I guess so. If you were just a bit taller, you might have seen that last state out, the furthest out state.
Yes.
Anyway, so shall we do this? Shall we, as Simon would say, get down to business?
Yes.
All right. Well then, how did we leave Alayne? Well, last we saw of Alayne, she was still clinging to her identity as Sansa Stark, and was unsuccessfully trying to escape Marillion's morose singing, as well as trying to avoid little Robert's nightly trips to share her bed. Her concerns that Marillion might tell the truth of Lysa Arryn's death were proven unfounded when he confessed to killing Lysa out of jealousy. She looked on as Petyr Balish presented Nestor Royce with a scroll making him Lord of the Gates of the Moon, signed by none other than Petyr Balish himself. Afterward, Littlefinger confirmed Sansa's suspicion that Littlefinger's signature on the document means that Nestor must back his claim as Lord Protector of the Vale in order to keep his newfound status. Finally, Littlefinger tells Sansa that she must be his daughter Alayne in public and even in private to fully sell the story and keep them both safe. Jenny, why don't we give them the summary, and a summary which you so kindly put together for us?
I did, and it went fairly well quickly.
All right.
So that's good. Getting better at it. All right, I did title it like I normally do, but the title is actually kind of a spoiler, so if we want to explain it afterwards.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. The sun is rising as Sansa awakens. She visits her balcony and looks out over the Vale. It's a lovely sight, but as she looks down over the valley floor, she can see the Lords Declarant camped outside the gates of the moon. Their host is 6,000 strong, 1,000 from each of the 6 lords.
Since Lysa's death, the lords and lady have made a pact to protect the Vale and save Lord Robert from the misrule of false friends and evil counselors. They arrive to make good on this pact. They include Lord Belmore, Sir Simon Templeton, Lord Redfort, Lady Waynwood, Lord Hunter, and Bronze Yohn Royce.
Sansa joins an irritable Lord Robert at breakfast. He wanted eggs, but only porridge was available. The Lords Declarant have refused to let any goods come up the mountain. Robert is ill-tempered due to lack of sleep. He claims he can still hear Marillion singing, although he has been assured the singer is dead. Robert refuses to eat, and he throws his spoon at a tapestry. Littlefinger arrives with Maester Coleman to inform Lord Robert the lords have come, and Robert takes this information poorly. He doesn't want them there. Littlefinger reminds Robert that he, Lord Balish, is in charge until Robert is 16 and orders another spoon for the boy. Robert throws his porridge bowl, which hits Maester Coleman, and then has a shaking spell.
Maester Coleman informs Littlefinger that the spells have become more violent and more frequent since Lysa's death. Robert has bled often and receives milk of the poppy and dream wine for sleep, but it isn't enough. The Maester suggests breastfeeding the boy, but Littlefinger is disgusted by the notion and suggests a pinch of sweet sleep in the boy's milk to calm him down. Maester Coleman is worried about this course of action, but doesn't truly object after Littlefinger insists. The Maester then takes Robert off to prepare for the meeting.
Littlefinger asks for a kiss from Sansa, who dutifully pecks his cheek. He informs her that she will attend the lords during their talks, but her current attire of tully red and blue is inappropriate. Sansa is afraid Lord Yohn will recognize her, as he has seen her once at Winterfell and once at the Hand's Tourney in King's Landing. Littlefinger assures her that the Lord will see only what he expects to see.
Sansa thinks they should give the lords Robert, since they already control the Vale. Littlefinger admits he does have some support, but not enough to control the Lords Declarant. Plus, they have no other place to go, and when Sansa suggests Harrenhal, Littlefinger dismisses it. It was only ever used as a great enough seat to marry Lysa. He instructs Sansa to go about her duties, and she does. She sees to refreshments, rearranges the seating in the solar, then bathes and changes into a more suitable dress.
She receives the Lords Declarant and escorts them to the solar, where they are admitted by Sir Lothar. Once everyone is seated, Littlefinger addresses the group. He begins by praising their declaration and asks where he can sign as well. He would also like to root out these false friends and evil counselors. That's a good one. The lords are unamused and tell Littlefinger it is he who they want gone. Their plan is to take Lord Robert to Runestone, where he will be raised with boys of his own age and with more experienced teachers. Littlefinger responds that he means to find Robert more suitable companions, stating Eyrie has 2 boys coming to the Eyrie, and he asks the Lady Waynwood for her ward, Harold Harding, as well. She seems amused, but refuses.
The lords insist again that Littlefinger leave, and assure him that he may leave unharmed if he departs for Harrenhal now. They maintain that Littlefinger has no right to the Vale. Littlefinger counters that Lady Lysa named him Lord Protector of the Vale and named her son his ward. Lord Nestor sides with Littlefinger, but the Lords Declarant are not appeased and repeat their demands. It seems the negotiations have reached an impasse.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Sir Lyn Corbray becomes tired of talking and draws his sword, demanding a duel. This outrages the lords, and they demand he stop, putting an end to the challenge and causing Lyn to leave in disgust. Littlefinger furiously addresses the lords, making his own demands heard in the wake of drawn steel at a parley. Littlefinger is willing to fight if he must, but he asks for a year in which to set the Vale to rights, blaming the misrule on Lysa.
Soon, only Lord Yohn dissents, but he has no other choice than to agree with the other lords, consenting to the terms. That evening there is a feast, attended by everyone save Sir Lyn and Lord Yohn, both of whom have already left the Eyrie.
Sansa can't sleep that night and goes to ask Littlefinger what happens in a year. Littlefinger is sure he will still be in control. Lord Horton and Lady Waynwood are old, and one or both may die. Lord Gilwood will probably be murdered by his brother. Lord Belmore can be bought, and Lord Templeton can be befriended. Lord Yohn will continue to be hostile, but is no threat alone. Littlefinger then reveals that although Lyn Corbray will continue to remain his unyielding enemy, he was bought and paid for all along.
Dun dun dun. Oh,
I feel like this was a
my
long
goodness.
chapter.
It was a long chapter. It was, I think, 16 or so pages on my e-reader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a pretty long chapter. And I mean, like I say, so often the last sentence in the chapter is like the most impactful sentence. And here we discover the whole time it was set up for Lyn to give Littlefinger an opportunity to get the upper hand by putting shame upon the Lords Declarant and getting them on their back foot.
Yes. Did you see that coming when you read it the first time, or
no, I
was that
didn't.
kind of a surprise?
It was, and the thing about it, I remember at the time thinking, what is he doing? This just doesn't make any sense. Why is he randomly drawing his sword right now? And it's not until the end of the chapter when you realize, oh, it wasn't supposed to make sense, because
Right.
he should not have been drawing his sword right then.
It seemed a little bit dramatic, but I guess it was supposed to be.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does come across. Yeah, exactly. It's like they were just talking, and then Lyn was like, "That's it. I've had enough. This is only going to be settled with a duel." And he whips out Lady Forlorn, and yeah, it was dramatic. But yes, you're right. I'm guessing it was intentionally dramatic so that the Lords Declarant would even be more flustered and more aghast by what they've brought into the situation, especially on the heels of what the Freys did at the Red Wedding. That's still fresh in the realm's
well, that was
mind.
actually one of my favorite lines in this chapter was when I think it was Bronze Yohn said, "Are you a Corbray or a Frey?" Like, that's an insult,
Yes.
That I love that.
Yes, I recall that line. I hadn't thought about it. Yeah, that is a good line. Yeah. So you wanted to talk about chapter titles, I see.
I did, because I don't really, it's interesting to read these where Arya and Sansa are both, living these alternate lives right now, but
right.
Being a huge Stark fan, I don't like that their names are gone. It's just, it kind of struck me, when you see it, especially the first time, you're like, Alayne, what? It didn't sit well. Like when you see the other points of view that we haven't had yet from Dorne or the Iron Islands, it's not that big of a deal if they're titled with those, the Drowned Man or whatever, because they're new and you're not attached to those people.
Yeah. No, I get it. I definitely get it. Yeah, there's a major distinction there. And we've come to know and love the Stark girls, and so it's tough to see them change their identities and give up their given names that we've come to know. But speaking of their aliases, Alayne and Kat, I read something yesterday on a wiki of Ice and Fire. You may have seen it as well, but if you combine those two names, you get Catelyn, which sounds an awful lot like Catelyn.
I have seen that. Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow. I'd never thought about that before. That's pretty neat. Catelyn.
That is neat.
Yeah, Catelyn.
Yes. I also wanted to point out that, you know how I remember Simon remarking on the fact that when I wrote a chapter about Sandor Clegane, I called him Sandor some of the time. I didn't really call him the Hound too much. I'm torn about his character. I still don't know how to feel about him, but Littlefinger
Right.
I loathe. I will not ever call him Petyr alone. Sometimes I'll call him by his full name, but it's always usually Littlefinger.
Right. He is, because he is Littlefinger. He might
Yes.
pretend to be Petyr sometimes when he needs to. If he had multiple personalities, his primary personality is Littlefinger, and
Agreed.
Petyr is shoved to the side and brought out only when necessary. So I totally understand that. Simon and I mostly call him Littlefinger as well. I hadn't really thought about that before, but as I'm thinking about it now, LF, we usually put LF in the notes for Littlefinger. Only on a rare occasion do we put PB.
Right. Just when it needs to be, I think sometimes I noticed in the summary, I had to spell some of the things out because you had initials, and I was like, I'm not going to read that correct.
Yes, sorry, yes, I was working too quickly there. We have a lot of initials that we use for various things. I tripped myself up because LC means Lord Commander in our shorthand, but I was calling Lynn Corbray LC in my notes. And then I was like, oh, wait, I'm going to get confused and I'm going to call him Lord Commander.
That's kind of why I snuck back in there and spelled most of them out, because I was like, that is going to trip me up.
I'm glad you did that. I apologize for my
no problem.
Shorthand, not correcting it. So I don't know if Simon's ever noticed this, but one thing I do when I write the summary is when I naturally speak, I use contractions. But I notice Simon uses contractions less than I do. So when I write his portion of the summary, I put in I take the contraction out, put in the full 2 words. And when in my own sections, I put the contraction in just so that it flows more naturally for him and for me.
How funny. I guess I've never noticed that.
Yeah, it's, it's a very small thing. I don't think Simon's noticed it, and he's read probably more than 150 to 200 of the summaries that I've written. So
yes,
just a subtle thing that I feel like helps with authenticity when we're reading something. So we have had a very few amount of people, very few, but some people complain that we read our summaries rather than just talk through our summaries. But I feel like our summaries are so in-depth and detailed that not reading them, we would surely forget something, or it just makes more sense to write them out and read them, I feel like.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
I can kind of see both points of view, but yeah, I do agree that it's easier with everything that we put in there to read it.
Yes.
Because they're pretty detailed.
Right. And we do that because not everybody is reading along with us. So we want the people who aren't reading along to get a full idea of what's happening in the chapter. Anyway, I digress. I've gotten us off task, which is Simon's job to keep me on task. So
I will just let you talk, and this episode's going to be 3 hours long.
I know,
Sorry,
right?
everyone.
Well, I was just saying last week to Simon that isn't it poetic that you and I are doing a chapter that takes place in the Eyrie, because you and I both love descriptions of the Eyrie, and I see that you mentioned in here the beautiful descriptions of the Vale.
Yes, it's. I think even though everybody thinks that Highgarden and the Reach are the most beautiful, I think I would pick the Vale. We've talked about that before.
Yes.
Did you notice kind of the falcon flying above the frozen water of Alyssa's tears, and it said the blue wings flashed above the white frozen waterfall? So that, to me, that was kind of House Arryn's heraldry.
Yes, I had not, but that's really neat that you picked up on that. Yeah, that is. It's the falcon, and it's the blue and the cream. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I had not noticed that.
It's not important, but just kind of some of those things that George throws in there, and you kind of pick up on it.
Yes, just part of his masterful writing style.
Yes. So Sansa got some new apartments. It sounds like, to me, Lysa was just being petty by giving her a tiny little room.
Uh-huh.
when she was alive. And now she's got, a bigger room with a balcony, so...
Yeah.
That was her niece.
Right.
I just feel like, why? I guess she's still jealous of Cat.
Yeah, I was trying to think of why, too, because she was clearly given this room before the kiss happened.
Yes.
And so she, for some reason... Now, I would assume that this apartment was open beforehand. It's possible maybe it was Marillion's apartment, and so until he was taken into custody, they were occupied by him. I don't know.
That's possible, but I know the Eyrie is small, but it's also not very populated, so surely there was some kind of better room that she could have had.
I agree. Yeah. I wondered if possibly these could have been Kat's apartments when she was in the Eyrie, only because the description of the sunrise that Kat paints for us is very similar to the description of the sunrise that Sansa paints. However, I will allow the fact that probably a lot of the rooms have such similar sunrise views. So,
probably so. Sunrise or sunset, yes.
Yes. So I will definitely acknowledge that. But I thought, wow, that's very similar to what Kat saw. But probably a lot of people that are looking out of their balconies are seeing such views. So anyway, just a thought I had as I was reading that part.
So Littlefinger gave Sansa Lysa's wardrobe and her jewels. And it did say in the chapter that most of them are too big, they don't fit right. But she did manage to pick out a totally red and blue dress for this chapter that she ends up having to change.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yes. She looked too Tully. She had to go look less Tully. He said it wouldn't be good for the lords to see you prancing around in my dead wife's clothes. So no blue and cream either.
Yes. That, and tying into that kind of the comment about the hair dye being from Tyrosh. What do they do when that runs out? What happens when winter comes?
Yeah, well, so I thought about the Tyrosh thing as well, and it made sense, of course, because if anybody knows about dyeing hair color, it's the Tyroshi. So, that did make some sense that it came from there. But I sure hope they have a large stock of this stuff.
A very large vat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or she's going to start having those auburn roots show through pretty quickly.
Yes. She's going to have to move up several centuries and wear a bonnet.
Yeah. She could go like Egg and shave her head.
That's true.
to hide her hair color. That might draw a little more attention to her than it did to Egg, but
it might.
The Lords Declarant, there was 8 of them that came totally. Would you mind running us through who they were real quickly?
Okay, we have Lord Benedar Belmore. He is the Lord of Strong Song. Simon Templeton, the Knight of 9 Stars. Horton Redfort, Lord of the Red Fort. Anya Wainwood, Lady of Iron Oaks. Gilwood Hunter, Lord of Longbow Hall. Bronze Yohn Royce, Lord of Runestone. And the last 2 that were with them were Lord Nestor Royce and Lynn Corbray. But, the last 2 were really already in Littlefinger's pocket, so he wasn't worried about them.
Right. Yeah, we didn't know Lynn was in his pocket at the time.
We did not.
But we soon discovered at the end of the chapter that, he wasn't worried about him at all. In fact, he had no real reason to be there. He's not even a lord in his own right. So
he's not.
Clearly, that Littlefinger, he was a plant for Littlefinger.
Yes. More of his plots.
Yep.
He's good at those. He is good at those. I'll give him that.
He is. He's really good.
Did you notice? I made a note here. Sansa seems to be growing and learning here from him. I hope she's not learning to be like him, but hopefully she's learning. But there was a lot of us and them mentality.
Yes.
Siding with Littlefinger, it was us against them.
What do they want from us?
Yes.
She's trying to stay hidden. She's trying to stay out of the limelight. That's kind of her primary goal right now, is for nobody to notice her, for nobody to realize who she is, especially. And now here she is, stuck in the middle of a siege and basically battle for control of the Vale. So I can imagine why she wants Littlefinger to win this situation, this standoff here, because if she's caught, her imagination could just run wild with the consequences of what might happen.
Absolutely, yeah. She doesn't like what would happen at the end of it, and neither would we, so.
Right.
We do want her to remain hidden, but I just wish it wasn't with Littlefinger.
I agree. But she really is. She's got nowhere to go at this point. So she has no way out. Even if she did have somewhere that she could go, she really doesn't have a way of getting there at the moment.
When you think about it, and it's probably been addressed before, it's really good that the girls ended up where they did, because Arya could not be doing what Sansa's doing, and Sansa could not be doing what Arya's doing. So
agreed. They both have found the paths that suit their strengths here.
So the comment about Sansa calling Maya Stone a bastard girl struck me, just because I felt like that was shades of Cat. Cat always makes a note of when people are bastards, and I feel like that's not necessary, but it is in sync with Sansa's character. And then I thought too, maybe George is reminding us here that is King Robert's daughter.
That could be. Yeah, you're right. It was an unnecessary distinction. Her last name was Stone, which would indicate that she was a bastard regardless. So it was a bit redundant, but
yes.
Yeah, I guess you're right though. It could be George's way of just reminding us who that character is. So I hadn't thought about that before. So yeah, that could be why it's turning there. Maybe it wasn't Sansa's fault. It was George that wanted that in there.
That's true. Speaking of Maya, we had already met her in Kat's chapter. And she is the one that gets the goods up the mountain on the mules, and she is not allowed to do that right now, so that's why there is no eggs or bacon.
Yeah. So an entire castle relies on a singular young woman to bring food from hundreds of feet below. I don't know, I feel like it's almost pedantry that one woman could supply an entire castle. Now I know it's the smallest of the great houses, of the great seats,
and lightly populated, but that's still a lot of food for one person to be transporting back and forth. It is, but doesn't she have multiple mules? And to me, the way he writes it, she's kind of like the mule whisperer.
Yes, right. Yeah, I'm sure she must, but
I see your point, and it is maybe a little pedantry. You know how I feel about pedantry, but yeah, I get your point. Without
calling it pedantry, I'll just say it's a lot of, shall I say, eggs in one basket.
Nice.
You see what I did there? Eggs, basket. But speaking of food and the lack thereof, is it wrong to stop the food deliveries to the castle? I mean, they know Lord Robert is up there, and they know he has a weak constitution. This could be putting the young boy in danger,
You would think that, but they did also say they have plenty of, grains, oats.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're not starving them out. They're just not allowing them very many choices.
Right. Only porridge, no eggs and bacon.
Yes. No, I mean, you would think, though, without meat, that people ate a lot of meat back then, so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're right, though. They're not in the dire straits that they were in Storm's End when Stannis and Renly were stuck in there during that siege. So, anyway.
Yeah, they called it a semi-siege here. Not exactly a siege, but the stage before that, so whatever that is.
So, switching subjects to Sweet Robin hearing Marillion at night. He mentions this over breakfast, but surely that's not real, right?
I don't think so. I think he's either dreaming it or just maybe hearing things because of the trauma that he's been through.
Yeah.
Surely somebody else would hear the singing if he were still alive.
Right.
I mean, exactly. Sansa says she hasn't seen the body, but when you take a walk off the sky cells, that's a pretty good drop. So, I mean, you're
not much
you're
body
not going to
left
find
to
it.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of brainstorming over this to think of whether it could mean anything other than just Robert thinking that he's hearing something that he's not hearing. And there's no chance that he could be hidden away, and then Littlefinger sneaks him into Robert's room to whisper songs and drive Robert mad, right? I mean,
that is just another level. That's like Stephen King writing.
there's this blind, disfigured singer that gets shuttled into a little boy's room at night just to
They've got him
creep
hidden
him
away
out.
in a broom closet somewhere, and they're
Yeah.
like trotting him out at night to drive poor
like-
little Lord Robert crazy.
Exactly. I was trying to think why Littlefinger would want to drive Robert crazy, because
Well, it seems like he wouldn't really need to drive him crazy because he's already not well. You know what I
Right.
mean? His
Yes.
constitution,
Yes.
like you said before, is weak. So would it really be necessary to do that?
no,
I mean, I
yeah,
actually
right.
kind of like that idea. That's kind of fun in a, like I said, a Stephen King sort of way. But
Yeah.
I don't know for sure if, do you think that?
No, not really. I was just trying to think of how this could mean something more than the fact that Robert, it could be that Robert is being drugged so heavily that he is, hallucinating.
That could be. Yep. Yeah, because he is having quite a lot of drugs.
Yes. For a little boy, especially.
Yes. He's got the dream wine, he has milk of the poppy, and now they are going to start giving him sweet sleep. So
And what is sweet sleep? Yeah, tell us about sweet sleep.
It says it's used in moderation to stop seizures. So if you look on the wiki of Ice and Fire, it does give like doses for an adult. A few grains will slow a pounding heart, stop a shaking hand, and make a man feel calm and strong. So that's a few grains for a grown person. A pinch will grant a night of deep and dreamless sleep. 3 pinches will cause sleep that doesn't end. So it seems like he's being given a lot.
Yeah, and the fact that he is a child, Maester Coleman really is going to have to be careful to not dose him too heavily, especially with all the other drugs that he is being given. And now, you can never take Littlefinger for his word, as we are well aware, but he does say he sleeps, Robert that is, sleeps 12 hours a day. I need him awake sometimes.
Yes.
So it seems like he is not in favor of the the constant drugging. But again, he could be playing Maester Coleman. You just never know. You just can't take
I
him
think
at
he
his-
has
at
to
face
play the
value.
line very carefully where he has to seem concerned. He can't just be like, put the kid to sleep, He can't seem like he doesn't care or
Right.
is trying to harm him, because I do think that Maester, he does object to the mention of sweet sleep, but he, not very hard, really. He doesn't put up too much of a fight when it's mentioned.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't he doesn't really at all. He says, "Okay, I'll try it," basically.
Yep.
So
Basically.
and Littlefinger does seem to show very little patience for Robert's issues.
Yes.
Makes him eat the porridge, says, "Your mother's dead, I'm in charge." He has absolutely no time for the breastfeeding idea. And I was wondering whether this could be a good thing or a bad thing for little Robert to go from his mother, who was so indulging, to Littlefinger as his guardian.
Yes.
So starkly different from one another. What do you think?
I think it's not good. I think Robert is already traumatized, partly because life was overbearing, and
Agreed.
He's so spoiled. He's not, like I said in the notes here, he's not a very sympathetic character. He's a brat, to say the least. But I mean, you do have to kind of defend him in a way because of the trauma, He's a little boy. He's been sheltered. He's not used to, people treating him like everybody has been since his mother died. He's scared, he's isolated, and like nobody seems to care that his mother is dead even,
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of hardship that he's dealing with, and he's not equipped, I should say. He's not equipped to deal with these types of hardships. He's been nothing but coddled his entire life, so I'm sure it's very difficult for him, which is why he throws these fits, possibly. And so about the fits, it's very possible that they could be a medical condition, but I wonder if it could also be drama whipped up to get the attention that he wants and get his way. For instance, the one he throws here at breakfast, he's not getting his way. People are, as he's probably thinking, people are being mean to him because he's not getting what he wants. And so he throws the bowl of porridge and hits Maester Coleman, which should be something that a little boy should get in trouble for doing. But instead, he immediately drops into a fit. And the next line of description is Sansa and even Maester Coleman, dripping with porridge, run over to him and are saying soothing things and trying to calm him. And all of a sudden he's getting attention and he's getting, not necessarily getting his way, but no one's mad at him. And the subject has been dropped about him eating this porridge.
I see where you're going, and it's possible, I think, but can a person fake an actual seizure?
Yeah, I get you. Right. I don't know whether they could or not. I don't know if the description is enough for us to be able to tell, one way or another, whether it's
It says shaking
seizure.
fit. It doesn't actually call it a seizure. It just says shaking
Right.
fit. So I don't know if he's just gotten really good at shaking himself.
Right.
Or
Yes.
if it is an actual seizure.
That's the thing. Yeah, we can't know, at least not yet. We haven't been given enough information, but sometimes, as we have not been given enough information, I sometimes wonder whether he's just feeling the need to get attention and get his way, and so drops into this convulsive fit until he gets soothed and calmed and gets put back to sleep and, is
That's
taken care
possible.
of. Yeah,
It's
maybe.
possible.
Yeah. Littlefinger.
Yeah, what a creep.
Yes.
Littlefinger is a creep. That's my exact notes. I think he's trying to groom Sansa.
Oh, yeah,
He
I agree.
asks Sansa for a kiss, and I don't think he's talking about the kind that he gets. He wants an actual kiss.
Yeah, he seemed awfully disappointed in her dutiful kiss, as he refers to it.
The line from the chapter is, he looked at her with Littlefinger's eyes.
Uh-huh.
And that, to me, said, that's not what I was wanting, so.
Yes, I agree. Just the way he said it, he looked at her with Littlefinger's eyes and said, I'd sooner break my fast with a kiss.
Yes,
Which sounds like something you may say to a romantic partner.
Exactly.
Not someone, a 13-year-old who's pretending to be your daughter.
You should be seeing that person as your daughter.
Yeah, yes.
Even
exactly.
if it's just pretending.
Yeah, I didn't like, I was immediately repulsed when I read that line.
Yes.
So, and I'm guessing that's what that's the
he wants
response.
you to be repulsed.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the tapestries here, they lead to a spoiler. McKelly wouldn't know about this spoiler because he's avoiding Winds of Winter chapters. I have read it. It's not very exciting so far. If there is a master plan beyond where they ended up, I don't know what that would be. If anybody really wants to know, you can ask me on Discord in the spoiler section if you haven't read where they are. But I'm not going to say what it is here.
It's definitely, I mean, you're right. I've intentionally not read any of the Winds of Winter chapter. I'm a rather patient person, so I will patiently wait for them to come out in book form if that ever happens. But even Simon and I, not knowing, could pick up on the fact that something is up with these tapestries because they keep coming up. Cersei brings it up in the small council. He didn't ask for any help. All he asked for was some old tapestries of Robert's, and now he's bringing it up here about how, oh, she's nice, she's sending me some tapestries. So
yes.
George doesn't often throw things in like that for no reason.
He doesn't.
So.
That's why I think there may be something else to it, but I'm not sure yet because, we only have that one. I know where they end up, but I don't know what the purpose is or if there is a purpose. So.
Right. Well, okay. That's good to know. At least it's good to know that there will be some sort of payoff, and I'm not just paying attention to these tapestries for no reason.
Like I said, the spoiler isn't very exciting so far, but maybe they will lead to something else. I don't know.
All right, we will keep an eye if and when Winds of Winter finally comes out in book format, and we dive into it in the Ghosts of Harrenhal.
Yes, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I've said it on Discord before. I am one of those sweet summer children who every year I'm like, it's going to be this year. It's happening.
Yeah,
we're going to get
too.
it. And then every year I'm disappointed. But, I'm going to continue to be like that. So
I hear you. It's that hidden vigorish thing, right? Every year it feels like, well, it wasn't last year, so now we've got to be a year closer. So it's got to be this year.
Yes.
As the years go by and we are left with no Winds of Winter. Anyway, so Sansa mentions escaping to Harrenhal.
Yes, and Littlefinger brings up everything that's wrong with Harrenhal.
Yes.
Including the curse.
He does. He definitely doesn't paint it as a very warm and friendly seat that he can't wait to get to.
I don't know who would want it, honestly. I mean, I guess some people do. Janos Slynt was pretty excited to get it. But
right.
We see how he ended up, so...
everyone thought that Littlefinger was a bit mad for wanting Harrenhal, and now we see in this chapter he finally says it out loud that he never had plans to ever step foot in the castle and enact the curse upon him. He clearly believes it enough to have no interest in ever going there.
Yes. It's kind of surprising here because the tables were turned. Littlefinger brings up the curse, and Sansa's one that says curses are only in stories and songs, which is
right.
a switch.
Yeah, it is, right? The sweet summer child herself saying, no, curses are just in songs. Yeah, and, we've discussed previously that basically since Black Heron wouldn't bend the knee to Aegon the Conqueror and Balerion torched Harrenhal, it's basically been a curse on every house who has made Harrenhal its seat. They've met some sort of bad fate, including Shella Went, who's been missing since Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And Littlefinger says here that he heard she's dead, which, I mean, does certainly make some sense. We haven't seen her in 3 books.
I'll tell you my solution for that in spoilers. For my solution for Harrenhal.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
I'll look forward to that.
Well, Sansa wants to give it to Lord Frey after they talk about it being cursed, so I'm with her on that.
I like that.
Let's move the phrase to Harrenhal.
I like that idea. Yes. They could have the twins and Harrenhal. Why not? What could go wrong? No, they should move out of the twins. That would be ideal. Yes, it would.
They don't need to be in charge of that river.
You know what, though? Why doesn't someone, maybe the Iron Throne, commission another bridge built across the river? So
not even like one that's attached to a castle or a lord. Just a bridge.
Just a bridge. That's all it has to be. Just a bridge, like the one behind you there.
Yes.
Jenny has a background screen of the Golden Gate Bridge, and there is no castle on either side of it.
That's right. It works without castles.
Yes. One thing I wanted to say about Alayne, though, or Sansa, depending on which name you prefer. I still prefer to call her Sansa, but
yes,
she situates the Solar with 6 chairs on one side and 2 on the other. And I thought that was kind of an impressive move by her. It doesn't seem that she was directed in any way by Littlefinger to do so. Her thoughts as she's laying out the furniture is, well, if this were a feast, I'd put 1 at each end of the table, and 3 on each side of the, side of the table. And then she puts 2 on one side and 6 on the other. So she's thinking ahead, you know what? Nestor Royce is going to be on Littlefinger's side. So I'm going to leave him no choice but to sit on the side with Littlefinger. And, from body language and positioning, align Nestor Royce with Littlefinger.
Doesn't that leave no seat for Lynn Corbray?
I think you're right. Because Littlefinger needs to sit somewhere. Yes. So that would make 9 people in the room.
Exactly.
Which is, I guess, why he stands by the fire. But you're right. She knew how many people were coming. He told her there was 8 coming. So
he's ready to leap into his dramatic stance at any moment.
Yeah, I guess maybe Sansa really knew. She was really thinking ahead and thought, Lynn Corbray's not going to sit. He'll be way too antsy to sit.
Yes. All right, so when Sansa retrieves the lords from the bottom of the castle, you have to walk through murder holes. Under murder holes. Yes. I think it said 3 murder holes. So,
yeah,
and then,
I think so.
How do you feel? Like it said the lords ignored them. So were they not worried about them? Were they?
Yeah, I think they were trying to ignore them because they didn't want to think about what might have been up in those murder holes. But at the same time, they were promised safe passage. So I think they were trusting that they were going to be, those murder holes were not going to be filled with murderous things.
All right. Well, we'll lump that in with the discussion here in a minute about the Lords Declarant and their troops that they brought there.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. So bread and salt were offered, guest rights. That makes Sansa think about the phrase and the murder of her family. And she hopes that any lord as noble as Yohn Royce would not do the same.
Yeah. And I would agree. The Vale is one of those places where chivalry is in reputation is very highly considered and respected. And like I said before, there's already this, this feeling around the realm that what the phrase did was just the low of the lows. I was going to
say, there seems to be 3 houses who are not bothered at all by the guest right problem. And that was the Lannisters, the Boltons, and the Freys. The rest of Westeros is like, that's horrible. That never should have happened. Yeah, but those 3 houses are like, it's fine.
Right, go figure. Those 3 houses, of all the houses, who would have thought? Who could have ever guessed that those would have been the 3 houses?
Sansa remembers seeing Lord Yohn Royce at Winterfell. He was dropping his son off to send him off to the Wall. I guess that's one of the families that still consider sending a son to the Wall an honorable thing to do. So,
yeah. I thought about that too, that it's odd that a house from the Vale would think to send, especially such a highly respected house, would send a 3rd son to the Wall. But it's great that they did. It's great that they thought about it.
Part of it was that he was the 3rd son. When you have up to 3, isn't it kind of hard to know where to put them all, when you're...
Yeah, except for mortality rates,
Well, that's true. There's a high mortality rate here.
Yeah, Robar is gone, so now, with Waymar also gone, Yohn is down to just Andar, just the one heir. So, might have been good to keep 2 spares.
That's true. Too late now.
Right, it is too late now, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. It mentions here that Lord Yohn Royce was sparring at Winterfell, and he hammered Ned Stark to the ground, so he must be a really good sword fighter.
Yeah, and he then turned around and faced Sir Roderick Cassel, so it's possible he was taking both of them on at the same time.
Yes.
Which would be something. And so I went back and looked up what he did in the Hands tourney, where Sansa said he he also saw me at the Hands Tourney, not just at Winterfell. And there is no, all it says is that he was a participant. There's no description of how he fared. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. So I can't tell you if he made it to the semifinals or quarterfinals or anything. It's no mention of it.
Well, he must not have placed all that well there if they didn't mention it.
He's getting up there. He's no Barristan Selmy. He might not be able to hang in quite as long as Sir Barristan has.
Okay, so speaking of Lord Royce, Sansa says she thinks he might have recognized her for a moment. He does say, "Do I know you, girl?" And
yeah.
Do you think he recognized her?
I think probably not. I maybe there was some spark of there's something familiar about this kid, but not enough to be able to place her as did I see you in Winterfell or at the Hands Tourney? I think Littlefinger mostly is right when he says people see what they expect to see.
Right.
And,
well, I think some of it too is it's not, the Starks weren't his bannermen or the other way around. And people just don't really seem to pay as much attention to the girls in this world, I don't think.
Yeah, you're probably right. And, Littlefinger says when he was at the Hands Tourney, he was busy with other things on his mind than some little girl in the stands. So, yeah, it's possible he's seen her twice. He spent time at Winterfell. It's possible there's maybe something in the eyes or something like that this girl looks vaguely familiar. How do I know you?
Maybe it's because she looks like her Tully relatives.
Yeah, it could be. Yes, that could be. So then, young Gilwood Hunter and Lynn Corbray, they make inappropriately crass remarks about Alayne. They talk about how she mentions that she is not a little girl. She is a maiden flowered, I think is the
yes
term she uses. And I think it's Gilwood Hunter that says flowered but not deflowered, I hope. And then Lynn Corbray follows that up with ripe for the plucking soon. And I mean, especially what we learn about Lynn Corbray at the end of the chapter, it's just, and thankfully...
Lady Waynwood to the rescue.
Yes, exactly. Thankfully, she comes in and, stands up for the girl, because that's just so inappropriate.
Why would lords talk like that about... I mean, okay, her name is Alayne Stone, and she's supposed to be Littlefinger's natural daughter, but still, would you mention something like that? Like in conversation? I guess they do, because they did, but I agree, it didn't seem appropriate. Yeah,
and one of the responses that Lainey Wadewood has is that, she is gently born.
I wanted to ask you what you thought about that, because do they think that Littlefinger is gently bred? He's from a tiny little tower on the fingers.
Right. The littlest of the fingers, nonetheless.
Yes.
Yeah. Possibly, the story that they're going with is that her mother was a gentlewoman of Bravos and the daughter of a merchant prince who died in childbirth. So, maybe from that aspect, they're considering her having been gently born, and the fact that Littlefinger is now currently Lord Protector of the Vale. Maybe that combination is where she's getting that idea from.
Do they know about her supposed mother, though? I mean, is that common knowledge? I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I don't know either. I know that's the story they're going with. I don't know how widespread the story has gotten out there, but for some reason she thinks that a girl with the surname Stone is gently bred. You wouldn't think someone with such a name would be gently bred. So,
but I still appreciate her jumping in and pretty much putting an end to that conversation.
Yes, regardless of how she did it, I'm glad she did it.
Yes.
So, Bronze Yohn plans to make a knight out of Lord Robert, and not just any knight, but a knight that Jon Arryn would be proud of. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying he's definitely got his work cut out for him.
I think if you had one of those slide rulers, it would be closer to the end of impossible than it would be possible. But hey, you never know.
You know, maybe getting him out of the quiet, isolated Eyrie would do him some good. And Lady Waynwood, she says that Bronze Yohn has raised 3 fine sons, and I was kind of like, meh, well, I mean, Robar, I agree with. He seemed like a good man. He was willing to believe Cat in Renly's tent and let them escape, that they didn't kill Renly. Waymar, he seemed a bit like an arrogant jerk, quite honestly.
Did seem a lot like an arrogant jerk.
And he got his men killed by not trusting the more experienced men in his group. We don't know. So, right now I'd say he's 50-50 on the 2 that we have met. So...
Well, we don't get much information about the oldest son, do we? Other than that he's the heir?
That's about all I know about him. If there's more out there, I'm not aware of it. So.
Okay. All right, so part of the argument that the lords raise is that Robert doesn't have anyone his own age, and they want to take him to Runestone so he can be around boys his own age.
Yeah, and at some level, like I said, I get that. There's no boys. He's completely alone with nothing but adults that cater to his every whim when possible. So it certainly wouldn't hurt.
Do you think 2 boys is enough boys to fulfill that requirement?
No, not necessarily. And I think a lot would depend on the boys. If it was the Walters, I think that would be terrible. If those were the two boys,
they would be terrible
and Little
anywhere.
Walter, yes, they would not be good. So, a lot would depend on who the 2 boys are. I think he should be somewhere where he is around more people.
Yes,
I think that would certainly help. But Littlefinger wants Harold Harding sent from Iron Oaks, which is where Anya Waynwood is the lady of. He thinks that Harold will be a role model for Robert.
Yes, we don't really get too much information about Harold in this chapter other than the name drop, and I think that's a future chapter.
Yeah, Anya, Lady Waynwood, is quite protective of this. She actually scoffs at the idea and calls Littlefinger a thief for trying to... have him sent to the Eyrie. So it seemed, I don't know, we'll have to keep an eye on it, but maybe there's something special about Harold, because all agree, including Yohn Royce, that Harold and little Robert should be friends. So, it sounds like there's something left unsaid.
Yes. The Lords Declarant, when they hear which lords are sending sons, they say pups from lapdogs. So it's 2 of Littlefinger's friends, basically.
Yes.
It's Lord Grafton of Goldtown and John Linderley of Snakewood, who's also from the Fingers. So people who support Littlefinger, basically.
And the reason he has friends in Goldtown is because back in the day when he was a younger man, he was in charge of customs in Goldtown, which is I think it's the only city in the Vale, and it's a large port town.
Yes. And he was really good at that job. He impressed John Arryn, which is how he kind of came to his attention.
Yes. Yeah, he increased income in the city by like tenfold or something like that. So, so that's why they love him in Goldtown, which makes sense. He was making them money. So,
okay, so Lord Nestor comes to Littlefinger's defense. He talks about if any of them had been successful in wooing Lysa, nobody would question the appointment of Lord Protector, and they should extend the same respect to Littlefinger.
Yeah, of course, he has a very vested interest in Littlefinger remaining Lord Protector, as I mentioned in the chapter, the character recap. His legitimacy as Lord of the Gates of the Moon depend on Littlefinger remaining as Lord Protector. So He
Yes.
definitely wants them to extend the same respect to Littlefinger as would be extended to them. But ultimately, it comes down to an impasse, and Littlefinger's defense is basically just, my wife said so, with regards to why he should remain Lord Protector. And it's kind of tricky because she was married into the Arryn family, So with Jon dead and Robert being a little boy, you could certainly make a case either way as to whether her word should carry any weight or not.
You know what I'm kind of reminded of here? Before Lyn Corbray pulls his little sword stunt is Cersei, when Ned has a piece of paper and she's like, "Is this it? A piece of paper?" And then she tore it up.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of that here, where he's just sitting there going, "My wife said so." So
yes, my wife, who was a Tully before she married Jon Arryn, and now she's dead. But she said,
yes,
he doesn't even have the paper shield that
he doesn't.
Ned
he
had.
has words. Words are wind.
Right. So then, Lyn Corbray draws his steel. All the Lord Declarants pretty much aghast. Like, what are you doing? And as you said, Bronze Yohn said, "Are you a Corbray or a Frey?" What? It just, they're all of a sudden, all the power that they had, the 6 strong lords and lady, are now all of a sudden backpedaling because they've gone from the ones being in the right to now having greatly offended their host, and now they're in the wrong, all from this one move that, as I said, seemed so out of place until you understand why it happened.
Yes. How dare you draw steel at a parlay?
Yeah, and suddenly the offer of 1 year as Lord Protector seems pretty reasonable versus incarceration and ruined reputations.
Yes, they don't want it to get out that happened.
Right. So one thing I just wanted to mention real quick is that Lyn Corbray calls Lothar Brune your apple eater. And I just wanted to remind people what that was in reference to. During the Battle of the Blackwater, Lothar Brune cut through the Fossaway force and killed, I think it was Brian and Edwin Fossaway, and captured Jon Fossaway. And of course, the Fossaway sigils are a green apple and a red apple, depending on which branch of the Fossaway tree you are on. Branch. I get it. That was unintentional. So anyway, he got the nickname Apple Eater because of his efforts in the Battle of the Blackwater, and that's why he referred to him as your Apple Eater.
All right, so the Gates of the Moon. Can you storm the Gates of the Moon? How does that work?
Yeah, I don't know what good it would do, because then what do? Once you storm, you capture the Gates of the Moon. That's as far as you can go, pretty much, as far as like storming goes.
It said that Lord Nestor only had 300 men, and that wouldn't be enough because the others had 6,000, but it's a stout castle with a moat. It says that in the chapter, and then it just, you go up some tiny little stairs up the mountain. How is that? How could you get 6,000 men up those stairs?
Right. Yes, that's what I mean by, like, you could take... I think 300 men is probably enough to hold off 6,000 men in a stout castle. But even if it wasn't and they took the castle, that's as far as they're going. You can't get 6,000 people up the 3-way castles, so then you're stuck.
I mean, what's the point of taking the castle any more so than just being camped in front of it?
Right.
I guess is my
point. They might
point.
as well. It's accomplishing the same thing either way. Right.
So do you think that the Lords Declarant were bluffing? Was it just political theater? Or do you think that they were really intent on kicking him out?
I think they were intent on kicking him out. I think the 6,000 men were simply a show of force to show we're serious. I don't think they ever had any intention of drawing any sort of blood.
So you don't think they were actually threatening the small folk or anything? They were just expecting him to cave with the thought of it.
Yes, because it's Vale on Vale here. I I think their reputations would be significantly more ruined than Lyn Corbray drawing steel at a parlay if they started killing small folk. That would sit poorly with a lot of the other Vale lords.
I did see on another source where some people did think they were bluffing and that Lyn Corbray was there to call the bluff. Like, either way, he was there to draw a sword, but they did think that they were bluffing.
Yeah.
I don't really think they were either. I don't think they cared about Robert, though. They don't care about Lysa being dead, and they don't care about Robert. No. Robert's a puppet. They care about power in the Vale.
Yes, I agree with that for sure.
When we find out, like McKelly says, the last line in the chapter is very important because how he pays Lyn Corbray is gold, boys, and killing.
Yeah, that's not good. That's pretty terrible.
That's really terrible because the word boys is used.
Yes,
not men, boys.
No, we don't get any explanation on it, but we can surmise what he's referencing, and it's pretty terrible. So, Lyn Corbray, he's he comes off as hot-tempered and a skilled swordsman, a brave warrior, and all that. But yeah, that's a whole nother situation there that we just don't know enough about him. But
right,
it's pretty awful.
It is. You have to wonder. Littlefinger must have bought up some information to get what Lyn Corbray likes, wouldn't you think? I mean, I don't think that men, especially lords, go around saying they like little boys. So that has to be bought information, I would think.
That is a very good point. You're right. Yes, that probably would not sit well with the whole reputation thing that we've been talking about. So yeah, I mean,
everybody likes gold. That's not a big deal. Clearly, he likes killing from his reputation. That's not a big secret. But the other one, that would not be common knowledge.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Speaking of things that aren't common knowledge, why don't we delve into some spoilers? So if you're interested in hearing what we say in our spoiler discussions, you can head on over to our Buy Me a Coffee page and check out our tiers that offer this spoiler discussion.
All right, McKelly, do you have any background for us?
I do. So Alayne knows that Lyn Corbray won his knighthood during Robert's rebellion. He originally fought against his liege lord Jon Arryn in Galltown, then joined Jon's cause and fought for him on the Trident. Alayne explains all of this to us in the chapter. The latter is the battle where he faced and killed Lewin Martell of the Kingsguard, which is Arianne's great uncle, by the way. So here's the question that begs to be answered. How is it that Lyn, a man of the Vale, fought against his own liege lord in Galltown? Well, I'm about to tell you. As we know, the act that kicked off Robert's rebellion was the killing of Rickard and Brandon Stark and other men by the Mad King, Aerys Targaryen. After their murders, the king sent a letter to Jon Arryn commanding him to send young Ned and young Robert Baratheon to King's Landing, which Jon Arryn refused to do. So now, being in open rebellion to his king, Jon Arryn began to call his banners. Ned also left the Vale for Winterfell to raise his own banners. Most of the Vale did rally behind their Lord Protector. However, one holdout was Mark Grafton, whose seat was Galltown. Grafton remained loyal to his king. As Galltown is the lone city in the Vale and a major port, we mentioned that earlier, Jon Arryn led his force against Galltown. In fact, it was Robert Baratheon that was the first over the city walls during the siege and managed to kill Mark Grafton in single combat. The taking of Galltown was the first official battle of Robert's rebellion. Now, Lyn Corbray was pardoned by Jon Arryn for his part in the defiance and went on to play a heroic part in the battle on the Trident by leading his father's men in an assault on the Dornish lines while his father's injuries were being tended to. That also Sansa brought up in this chapter. So, there you go. That's how it was that a Vale man like Lyn Corbray ended up fighting his liege lord in Robert's rebellion and then fighting for him later.
All right, thank you. That's fascinating. I like the background section. So
Me too. Me too.
Good. So, okay.
Glad to hear it.
comparison with the TV show, they took a little bit of a different direction. Only Littlefinger and 3 Lords Declarant are present at the meeting. It's Lord Nestor Royce, who is not on Littlefinger's side in the TV show. He's extremely hostile at first. Lady Waynwood, and a 3rd unnamed lord who really doesn't even say anything. So I'm not sure which one that was supposed to be, and I guess it's not important. They aren't here for a power struggle in the Vale. They just want answers about Lysa's death. So Littlefinger tells them that Lysa committed suicide. They don't believe him. They don't even ask for Robert to be sent anywhere or anything. They don't ask to foster him. They do call for Sansa to come in and give her testimony about what happened with Lysa. Things kind of break down and Sansa becomes clean about who she is. She tells them she's not Alayne, she's actually Sansa, and why she's there. And tells them that Lysa was unstable and that she was worried about Littlefinger not loving her anymore and going for a younger woman. She does admit that Littlefinger kissed her, but it was only on the cheek. So,
okay.
She cries, they feel sorry for her, and end up on Littlefinger's side.
Okay.
They believe that Lysa was, they called her, I think, they didn't call her an odd bird, but something along that line in the TV show. So I guess they kind of bought the fact that she just kind of went a little bad towards the end. So, but Littlefinger is the one who offers to send Robert out into the Vale with the lords to foster and grow up. So it's quite a switch there. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, here, you can have him. I'm done with him.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different direction. Huh. Wow, cool. Good work. Pedantry Corner, you have anything?
Well, as you see here, I wrote crickets. I did have a minor note that I think the wiki entry about sweet sleep might be incorrect, because in the chapter it says to give Robert a pinch. If you read the wiki, it says a pinch will put you to sleep, and Littlefinger said he needed him more awake. So there seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy there.
Right. Yes, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that is a discrepancy. Yeah. Yeah, he specifically said he already sleeps 12 hours a day. I need him awake from time to time.
So if you listen to what I said earlier, a pinch will put him to sleep.
Yeah.
All night with no dreams or anything. So
and that's an adult, right?
Yes, that's for an adult male, so.
Yeah. I don't have anything really. It's just sometimes I feel like the Eyrie, as much as I love it, as much as I think it is beautiful just the way it is, I think it might be just a pinch too impregnable. Okay, so it was built originally because they didn't feel that the Gates of the Moon was a worthy castle compared to the other great houses in the realm. So They wanted their own big, fancy, impressive castle. So they built this castle on the top of a mountain, which is very impressive and, very beautiful. And the views are unmatched, unless maybe you're at the top of the wall, I guess. Still not matched, though, because you're just looking out over desolation. Anyway, but, okay, so you did that, but who's going to visit you? You can't hold balls up there. The way you access it, they mention in this chapter, is handholds carved into rock within the giant's lance that visitors have to climb ladder-like through a chimney that leads from the Way Castle sky up to the Eyrie. But the other option you could take is a basket. You can get literally
you can get hoisted up in a basket.
Yes, you
like
get
food.
Hoisted up in a right. So you're not having any balls or like big fancy dinners. You can't really even have much in the way of a court up there. So you've got this big, great fancy castle in the sky, but whoever sees it or really can appreciate that it exists without having to go through all these issues to get up there.
I know Sansa mentioned wanting to squash the Lords Declarant like ants. So do you think you can even see the Eyrie from the valley floor? And does it look like a little toy castle since they look like ants?
Yes, I bet it. I really bet it does. Yeah. So I just feel like they should have figured out a way to at least make a path. In the show, both Game of Thrones and now that we're House of the Dragon, there's some shots at the Eyrie. There is a path that you take that leads to the Eyrie. It's very much different in the show than here in the book. But if they could have just made some sort of path that the average person could at least go single file up through, I feel like that would have been beneficial.
Absolutely get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that in a world where we have years-long seasons and dragons and people who come back from the dead, it doesn't really bother me that it's too impregnable. It's just, it's fun to me. I like it.
Yes,
so.
It is. It's just when they were describing how the lords got up there, I was like, that's too much. That's too much that you have to go on a basket on a rope or up through a chimney climbing like a ladder to get to it. But anyway, enough of Pedantry Corner. Let's move on to news and notes. And the first thing I'll say is that we had a really fun sustainer call, as we always do. Jenny, you were very much missed, of course.
Yes, I apologize. I'm sorry I had to miss it. It turned out to be something I couldn't avoid. I am really hoping to make the next one.
Well, yes, you were. I did enjoy meeting Keturah, a new, not necessarily a new sustainer, but a first-time caller to the sustainer call. So that was nice to meet her, and of course all our other regulars that show up. That was good to see all of them. We had a fun time. It's never quite long enough. And Simon did try to sing us out, but as usual, he did not time it up. Yes.
I think he does that on purpose.
I think it might be. Another thing I wanted to mention is that there are changes coming to how our YouTube episodes are presented. YouTube has changed their means of acquiring our episodes. I no longer have to manually create videos from our audio recordings for each episode, which I just have to say I'm not upset about. It is a bit of a time-consuming process, and I'm terrible at remembering to do it on time. I'm not so sure yet, but I think once the process is complete, my existing man-made episodes will be replaced by those pulled in from our RSS feed. Basically, you all shouldn't notice much different on your end, but some of the structure might be different. Like currently, the podcast on YouTube is split up. Each book is its own separate podcast. I think that's probably going to go away, and it's just going to be just like you would see in any of our other podcast outlets. And of course, it'll be available on YouTube Music, which is another positive. So there you go. I don't know yet because it's not live. It says it will take several days, and I just initiated today. So when it does go live, I'll report back and let you all know more specific information. We have a review, though. Would you like to read our review, Jenny?
I will read the review. I'm going to call this person Tegan D. If I pronounced that wrong, many apologies.
I'd go for it as well. Tegan
all right.
D.
I usually listen to this podcast on Spotify, but I created a Podchaser account just so I could leave a review. This is the podcast for all Game of Thrones fans or anyone who wants to be a fan but isn't sure where to start. I love the books, but I always felt that I was missing a lot of the details, and with George R.R. Martin, he loves details. These guys do a fantastic job breaking down each chapter, telling you the background of the different houses and characters, speculating on what might happen, and all without spoiling what's to come. As an added bonus, the hosts are so fun, and I absolutely love their conversations. I truly feel like they're including you in their talks, and I am so ecstatic to have found them. So, thank you, Tegan D. That's a really good review.
Yes, thank you. That's lovely. I really appreciate that, and thank you for creating a Podchaser account just to leave that review. So, yes, that's great. Thank you very much. All right, well, maybe we should conclude this episode.
I think Simon would be ashamed of us. I can hear him. Yes. Oh. I think he'll skip listening to this one.
Yes.
He'll be like, come on, be quiet.
Yeah. Well, That's his job, is to keep things running on time. So when he's not here, when the cat's away, the mice shall play. And we have definitely played this episode, but it's been so much fun.
It has.
So, yeah, Littlefinger is crafty. He really probably had no business winning this particular argument. Yet, because of the things he had set up to happen during the argument, he prevailed.
Do you know, like, how rats can squeeze into tiny little spaces or underneath doors? That's Littlefinger. He always squeezes out of it so far.
He does. Yes, he does. It was very well planned out to swing the momentum from the Lords Declarant side to his side, with Lyn Corbray drawing that steal right when he did.
Yeah, that was a pretty genius move.
Yeah. He shamed them and then argued as the aggrieved party, which is, it's usually a power of strength, or a place of strength. If you're the aggrieved party, you usually can have an upper hand over the person that has aggrieved you, I guess.
Yes. Littlefinger thinks he's controlling Game of Thrones from the Eyrie. Is that delusion, or do you think there's some truth to it?
Yeah, it's hard to say with Littlefinger, right? Like you were just saying, you never know. Like,
you never know.
He could be that rat squeezing through another little hole. It's hard to imagine being isolated like he is, but remember, he has, at least he feels like, the Kettle Blacks are in his pocket, and the Kettle Blacks are all around Cersei. I mean, she has, in many ways, pushed Jaime away for Osmond Kettle Black. So, maybe he could take her out if he wanted to.
What we didn't talk about earlier was the fact that he did mention he might need to remove Cersei from the board earlier than he had planned, especially if she learns of Sansa's location. And he also made a comment about how sometimes the pawns don't make the move you expect them to. I don't know what that means yet. Do we know what that means?
Not unless he's referring to possibly Cersei as one of his pawns. That's how powerful he thinks he is, that she is nothing but a pawn to him.
Well, see, I kind of took it as she thinks he's her pawn, but pawns don't always move expectedly, is how he put it. I thought it meant that he's supposed to do one thing, but he's not going to do that.
Oh, yes. You could be right, yes. Looking at it from her perspective, he's saying, I am her pawn, she thinks.
Yes.
But I'm not going to react the way she intends me to react.
Yes.
That makes sense. That does make sense. And speaking of the Game of Thrones, Sansa's possibly better at the Game of Thrones than she realizes. She puzzled out that Lyn Corbray was on Littlefinger's payroll, and all she needed was Littlefinger to confirm it. She already had the suspicion that it was that was the case.
Isn't this the second time that she's figured out what he's doing without him telling her?
Yes.
So yeah, I think she is getting better at playing the game.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think it's accidental. She's a smart girl, and I think she's starting to figure out how the world works the more she's exposed to it. And she's playing his dutiful daughter, but she really doesn't have a choice.
She doesn't. Every fiber of my being is like, get her out of there, but she has nowhere to go. She's where she has to be, so.
And like you said earlier, she's definitely being groomed, and it's pretty disgusting. Yes,
exactly.
Right, that must be. But she's literally stuck at the end of the world with no way out, so. She could have outed herself to the Lords Declarant, but she couldn't know how they would react. Maybe they would protect her, maybe they would turn her in. She wasn't willing to take that gamble.
The unknown is worse than the known, I guess, in this case.
Yes, right.
So Littlefinger has a year to work as Lord Protector. Do you think he will still be in charge at the end of that year?
He had much less than a year to whip up this plot, and he managed to be successful. So I think given a chance, I expect that he will secure the Lord Protector for as long as he wants it. He just seems to really be good at maneuvering things to his advantage.
Yes.
And I just wanted to point out that this is chapter 23 of 46 chapters, including the prologue. So we are at the halfway point of A Feast for Crows. So how about that? Halfway there.
Yes.
It's so you have
46, so 23 chapters left here, and then dance. So if he doesn't
Yes.
get that book done in that time period, we're all in trouble.
That seems impossible, but because
You know,
there's 80 some chapters in dance, but you just can't put it past him.
It used to seem impossible. Now we're like, it could happen.
Yes, that is a good way to put it. But up next we've got Cersei.
Yeah, Cersei's not my favorite. I actually kind of loathe her as well, but I do love reading her chapters.
Yeah,
the chapters are fun.
They are, and it's like we've talked about in the past a lot, Simon and I. The chapters that take place at King's Landing kind of pull the whole story together and keep everything. It's kind of like the hub of the spokes that is the story.
Yes.
And we were talking about Littlefinger plotting and scheming, and we're going to see Cersei doing some plotting and scheming of her own here next week.
Cersei is not as good at it.
No, she's not. She thinks she is, but she's really not.
She's not.
No. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for joining me here today. I had so much fun. Obviously, this is so by far the longest episode we've ever had, and I've had a lot of fun doing it.
Yes, it is fun. I do apologize to the listeners for talking so long, but that's what happens when Simon's not here to rein us in.
That's right. Oh, he would have moved these topics along so much more quickly than we did.
He would have. Yep.
But it was a lot of fun. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So there's 3 ways to help these guys out. You could leave them a 5-star rating and a positive review. You could buy them a cup of Arbor Gold at www.buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Join them at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match each budget and interest. You could make a donation to their website at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, first off, now you can send us text messages, and we have been getting those messages, and we have been enjoying them. Unfortunately, we can't respond, so please don't be offended by the lack of response. But also, if you're wanting to keep up with the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.